Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for this week's Pastoral Update. Wanted to look back once again this week to talk about a passage that we looked at as we concluded our missions week this last Sunday. We looked at, kind of surprisingly, it wasn't a part of our original plan, but we looked at Acts chapter 4 and basically looked more into the growth of the early church there in the book of Acts. And one of the things that really stuck out to me as I was reading over this passage, as we looked at it yesterday together in worship, was just the reliance that the early church had on the Lord. You see them being with Jesus, being filled with the Holy Spirit. You see them going to God in prayer, trusting that He is sovereign, that He has a plan, that He's working all things together for His glory, for their good, and just this boldness and confidence that comes out of that. And then as we continue to read through Acts 4, and really throughout the book of Acts, we see that God is continually at work in the lives of those early Christians, helping to advance God's kingdom, helping the church to just spread like wildfire, not only there in the epicenter of where it started in Jerusalem in that part, but across the Roman Empire as we read throughout the book of Acts. And so it was a reminder to me, I think as an important reminder for us as Wedgwood as a whole, is that with the same God that we see there in Acts chapter 4 is obviously the same God that we still serve today. And it's interesting to me that those early disciples, what they didn't have, if you kind of think about it, they didn't have buildings, they didn't have a lot of budgets, they didn't have a lot of resources that we have here in the American church in the West today. But that really didn't seem to faze them. The thing that they had that they really needed the most was the Lord. And there was this incredible reliance upon God that you see in those opening chapters of Acts, in which they're relying on God, understanding that if they're going to fulfill the calling that God has put on their lives, that we see there at the beginning of Acts, at the end of Matthew's gospel, in Matthew chapter 28, this call to go out into all the nations, to make disciples of all nations, they understood there's no way they can do this on their own. And so they just simply didn't have the skills, the manpower, the financial resources at their disposal, but they served a God who could do all of that for them and through them and in them. And so that same mindset, I think, is so important for us to have today as well. It's so easy for us at times to look at what we don't have, to focus on the lack, to focus on maybe the things that we wish we could be or the things that we wish we could do, instead of keeping our focus and our attention fixed on Jesus and understanding that He is able to do incredibly more than we could ever imagine or ask for, that God is omnipotent, He's sovereign, He's powerful, He owns everything. And He's given us a promise that His word is going to go into all the nations. The war has already been won. We just have to continue to walk in obedience to what He's calling us to do. So I think for us as a church, it's important for us to not necessarily ignore the areas that we can improve and grow in, obviously, but to continue to keep our focus on the God that's calling us to follow Him in obedience. To not be always as concerned about what we don't have, and be focused on what we do have in our obedience to God, following Him, trusting Him, and allowing Him to provide for us as we go forward. And I think that's a really good foundational understanding of what we're going to need to have as we go into a series starting here in a couple weeks. On October 22nd, we've been talking about this for a little bit now. We're going to be beginning a new series that's going to cover the vision, the mission, the values of Wedgwood. Some of those things are going to be brand new. Some will be a little bit of a repeat. Some will be a little bit of a tweak of some previous understandings of those areas. And so I think, though, the mindset that we see there, the apostles and the disciples in Acts 4, is what we need to have as well as we look to see what God is calling us to do as a church as we move into the future as well. And so I'm going to encourage you, definitely be here as we start that series, October 22nd through November 12th. And we're going to have a really special service on November 12th that you'll definitely want to be a part. It'll be very practical in the sense of how we actually going to do all of the things that we're going to talk about in the previous 3 weeks. But then we're also going to have a time of commitment in which we begin to really pray and ask God to work in and through us as we engage the people around us in this community. And so let me encourage you to be there for all of those. Obviously, don't forget, we have a guest speaker this Sunday, Gene Staples. You will not want to miss it. It's from Hope Church, who is a fantastic church there in Las Vegas, doing incredible things and advancing God's kingdom. So be sure to be there for that. And then obviously all of our Wednesday night stuff this week as well. So hope to see you this Wednesday, this Sunday, and again October 22nd as we start this very new and important series. Hope you have a great week. God bless.